Good morning. We'll welcome in National College Football Analyst with ESPN, our friend Tom Luginbill. He'll join us on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent in any of the 82 counties in the state of Mississippi. 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Good morning. Welcome in. Hope you had a good weekend. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. I am your host, Bo Bounds, and Tom Luginbill. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, man. How you doing?
I'm good. I read an article over the weekend on Ole Miss quarterback Austin Simmons by Justin Williams. Now, I knew he had been homeschooled. I did not realize that started in sixth grade. And I knew he graduated early at 16, as you know, and he's already graduated from Ole Miss at 19. I mean, this isn't the usual path, Tom Luginbill, but Lane Kiffin and Joe Judge love him. We'll see if he's going to live up to the expectations and everything, but he looked great against Georgia. That was kind of a one-off. What do you think about our guy, Austin Simmons?
Well, as I said to you, as we've had conversations about Arch Manning and, other guys that, weren't thrown into the fray right away, and how I think that's a good thing. And I think it helps the development, and it helps accelerate the development when you're not under pressure to do something that maybe you're not ready to do yet. And so I like the way he was brought along. I think that, when you consider the upside, I mean, when you take a guy that's graduated at 16 years old, you're sitting there going, all right, we're not going to play with this guy right away. We didn't have to play with him right away. And now we can grow him up. We can get him in the weight room. We can get him in the meeting room, get him acclimated to being away from home. And as you mentioned, you go from being homeschooled and then you get dropped into Oxford, Mississippi. I mean, holy smokes. I mean, you're talking about culture shock in terms of your social life and how you acclimate to all of that. So, there was probably a lot on that kid's plate, maybe more so than most incoming freshmen, and not just because he was younger, but because he'd had a bit of a different upbringing.
Yeah. And he looks the part, and they believe in him. He didn't get the reps that you necessarily want to get in high school, but Kiffin said in the article, Lugs, I promise I don't mean this in a negative way, but being around it and seeing how much his dad had worked with him, it was like he created a machine. There are some Todd Marinovich elements. Now, some people will take that and go negative. Some will go, some positives. Kiffin understands the implication of invoking Todd Marinovich, according to the article. And he says, again, not in a negative way, just how Austin was almost programmed for this at such a young age. Now, you're from the West Coast. You're from San Diego.
Yeah, I grew up with that whole saga.
Okay, so you remember all that. He had never had a Big Mac, and he was on sports, on the cover of Sports Illustrated, first test tube athlete. Walk us through a little bit of that. And there's a bunch of David Simmons quotes in here that David Simmons basically tells you, he's the greatest player ever, which I get, it's his dad. But I'd like for you to extract the Todd Marinovich part and then continue to, expound on Austin Simmons.
Well, I think that one of the things too with Todd Marinovich, and I remember it like vividly because it became folklore. Like it became almost a story that you couldn't actually believe. You'd say, no, there's no way that, the kid's never had a Big Mac, or he's never had a sleepover. He's never gone to the movies with a girl, and none of the, and by and large, it was all true. But the problem with it was that it sheltered him to the point that he didn't know how to deal with foreign, I guess you could say, types of things in his life that if you were not under that bubble, that you would probably just roll with the punches. And then to have the pressure of being Todd Marinovich, and being such a high profile recruit and being quote unquote, made in the lab and all this and that, like, how is he ever supposed to meet all of those expectations, And, to me, I actually thought that it led to all of the off the field problems that he had throughout his college career and into his NFL career, because it's almost like being let out of a cage, right? I mean, you're all the stuff's being thrown at you. It's sensory overload, and you're the quarterback at USC, and that magnifies everything. And what are you expecting this young man to do when he has not experienced any of these types of things in society before? So are we saying that, I don't think the situation with Austin Simmons has too many parallels to the Marinovich thing, because I think in today's, Marinovich was pre-internet,
right,
pre-social media. Really, even, the only coverage he would have gotten would have been print publications and local television coming to practice or seeing a game. But now there's only so much you can shelter, kids from these days. So I think that Austin has probably been a little bit more reasonably brought up, no matter how much he's been, tailored to be something, but he's been exposed to things. Let's just say that.
Right. Okay. And the Southern Cal program was not run well at that time, and the culture wasn't there. One thing we know about Lane is he has grown up, figured it out, and become a top 10 coach in college football, and they've got everything buttoned up there. How crazy is this that he's already graduated from Ole Miss at 19 years old, Luke?
I know. Well, listen, it's amazing how much with summer school, because, these scholarship athletes now, it's year round. So you might be able to sneak in 2 summer sessions during the summer and, bang out another 12, 15 hours in between your fall and your spring semester. And if you really want to do it, you're probably going to take 18 hours your spring semester. You can rapidly accelerate getting a degree now, more so than you ever could before. And there's online classes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we didn't have any of this stuff. So I played 4 straight years. I did not redshirt, and I graduated in 4 straight years. And at that time, in the mid-'90s, that was an accelerated rate. Like, to be able to actually get done in 4 without redshirting, that didn't happen.
Yeah, everybody almost everybody. I remember like Sherrill and Tuberville years, for example, when I was in college.
Yeah.
Damn near, Luke's, everybody, even really good, highly recruited guys, almost everybody redshirted during that time.
I remember when Marshall Falk was a phenom as a true freshman, and that was 1991, all right? Nobody was playing as a true freshman, let alone dominating college football.
Right.
Like that just wasn't happening. And now, obviously, it's more the norm than the exception. But academically, the progress that you can make now with summer sessions and online classes, it's ridiculous how fast you can get done. That's why I always say there's no excuse. You may not like school, and heck, I didn't like school, but it's a necessary evil. It's a means to an end. So just get through it,
right?
Fight through it. There's no excuse if you're a scholarship athlete today to not leave with a degree. There's zero excuse with that.
No, good grief. They've got everything you need around you. All these academic centers and so on. And you're right, all the online classes. We're visiting with Tom Luginbill with ESPN. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. We've got the passing of the torch in Oxford. Jackson Dart had an unbelievable career. 3 years, they won big. First-round pick, New York Giants. Lane Kiffin and Joe Judge loved him. Now they have Austin Simmons. And they love Austin Simmons, 6'4", athletic, left-handed, dual sport, guy, but dropped baseball in 2024 just to focus on football. And it's virtually impossible this day and age to play both. Hell, it was extremely difficult back when Lugs and I were growing up, and Frank Thomas and Bo Jackson and some other players would do it. Dion. So what do you make of? What are your expectations for him in year one? They lost a lot of guys I mean, they lost Trey Harris and Jordan Watkins and a lot of dudes. And I'm not saying they don't have talent, but they lost like 38 guys because they built up for 3 years and they did it right. They built up for 3 years for last year. I mean, I know they're going to be good, but what are your expectations? Also, one more thing I think he's got going in his favor. Nobody's really talking about him because you've got Arch Manning. You got Lagway at Florida, and whenever Florida starts to figure it out, the media likes it, and I don't blame them. They're the biggest brand in the league, along with Texas, I think. You got Nussmeier coming back, and I guess Gunnar Stockton's getting some. Anyway, you've got some other guys who are grabbing the headlines both this week in Atlanta and during the offseason. I think that kind of plays in Kiffin and Austin Simmons' favor. How do you see it, Luke?
Oh, absolutely. You got John Mateer as well at Oklahoma.
That's right.
You got Lenore Sellers at South Carolina. Let all the attention be placed on them. And I'm not saying you try to shelter Austin Simmons, but his time's going to come to get a taste of that. But it doesn't mean that it needs to be overload. In fact, I think it's probably a positive for him to have good, proven guys coming back in the league. And listen, there's going to be enough pressure on him anyway after you replace Jackson Dart. As you just mentioned, you got a lot of departures from the roster that was built over the last few years to build very, very good football teams. But I do like, Caden Lee, wide receiver. Zach Harrison Wallace comes over from Penn State. Deshaun Stribling, I've actually seen him play in person. He comes over from Oklahoma State. There's some good targets around him. Now, you're going to have a bit of a rebuild in the offensive line. And obviously you're going to have new face at tight end. Daquan Wright comes over from Virginia Tech. But left tackle Diego Pounds, probably fit in nicely. But it's not just going to be about Austin Simmons. It's going to be about all the pieces around him coming together to help him maximize his development.
Yeah. We're visiting with Tom Luginbill, who played quarterback at Georgia Tech, been with ESPN for 20 years. He joins us on the Out of Bounds show. Austin Simmons is QB1 in Oxford. Lane's been on a heck of a run with Matt Corral and Jackson Dart. He inherited a great one and then recruited Dart from Southern Cal, and he had an unbelievable career. Now the next guy is Austin Simmons. Kiffin in the article said, and I quote, I actually said to Coach Saban on the phone the other day, just in terms of composure, he compares him to Tua, who Kiffin recruited and coached at Alabama. He goes on to say, Austin is just calm, really, really calm. We talk a lot with our quarterbacks that when emotions go up, decision-making goes down. Did you find that, Luke, when you started in college at QB?
No question. And I think with the younger the quarterback, everybody talks about managing the game. I think it's more about managing your emotions. Because it's very difficult not to get caught up in the highs and then, unfortunately, get stuck in the lows. And if you are what I call a yo-yo player, up and down, up and down, up and down emotionally, your performance is going to be up and down physically. So I think it's the maturity of the poise and the composure. Some younger guys have it. Some guys develop it. Some guys get it through the live bullets flying by, and they just have to kind of play through the rough parts, and then they settle in. But, a guy like Tua obviously had it at a very young age. Bryce Young had it, I think, at a very young age. I would argue that Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels didn't have it until later in their career.
Yeah.
And everybody's different. Everybody matures at a different rate. Everybody handles things at a different rate. But there's no question that handling your emotions and managing those emotions have a direct impact on productivity.
Tom Luginbill talking Lane Kiffin and QB1 Austin Simmons going into 2025. A little bit different schedule this year for Ole Miss. They started with their 4 non-cons last year and blew everybody out. And then were upset at home in one of the wildest, weirdest games against Kentucky. Never in a million years did I think Kentucky at 1-7 would beat Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin and Pete Golding. Still had a good year, but could have had a great year. Could have won won it all if they'd have gotten in. This year, a little bit different. They go to Kentucky week 2, which you never know, even though they're not good on offense, and Arkansas at home week 3. Point is, they will place Austin will play some SEC teams early, and we'll see how that looks. So we just had a listener ask Tom a follow-up on the Penn State and Oklahoma State transfers. All right, so you referenced 2 guys that Kiffin and crew, Billy Glasscock's his GM up there, Kiffin and crew were able to bring in. How would you – can you comp them? How good are these guys? Are they in the Trey Harris vein, another receiver that may come to mind? Tell me more about the Penn State, Oklahoma State transfers, Luke.
So you basically have a combined over 30 starts at wide receiver between Wallace and Stribling. So you're bringing in some experience. Wallace is a senior. Stribling's a senior. To me, it's hard to sit there and say, okay, are they going to be Trey Harris? But what you can say is that they're built very similar to Trey Harris. They're both bigger guys, about 6'2", 200 pounds. So I think that, and then they bring, again, some playmaking ability. They've proven. And I think that's the thing is when you bring guys over in the transfer portal, it's not always about getting the flashy, high-profile name of what the guy was as a recruit when he came out. It's about turning on the tape and seeing, is this guy better than what we currently have, and can he improve our roster? And so guys like Billy Glasscock, Lane Kiffin, the staff, whoever it is that's sitting down watching that tape, they felt these guys were an improvement. So that in and of itself should tell you something.
Yeah, no, they've crushed it in the portal, and we'll keep an eye on those guys early, mid, and late and see what all they do. Let's switch gears here to Hugh Freeze. We're visiting with Tom Luginbill, National College Football Analyst with ESPN, started at Georgia Tech at quarterback. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. This is 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Okay, so people love to beat up on Freeze. And the big brouhaha, and I think it's some media is looking for something to go big on. Maybe this is going to carry the day in Atlanta this week. I don't know. I don't need another NIL conversation, but it's house settlement. We're going to, I'm sure we'll hear all that for the next 4 days. Yeah. But so they're ranked 86 in recruiting. I look at it like this. When he came out at this ambush invitational, I guess they raised a bunch of money for recruiting at Lake Martin. Because I do, whether you like him or not, he knows how to coach football. He made the mistake at QB, but I think they've got it figured out now with Jackson Arnold. He said, we're going to be really good at wide receiver. We're going to be really good at defensive line, and we're going to be much better at quarterback. I look at their schedule. I expect them to knock down an 8-4 record because Durkin can get it done on the other side of the ball. Do you look at this as much to do about nothing, or how do you see this with the big story of Freeze not recruiting well, even though he's knocked down back-to-back top 10 classes and he knocked down the number 8 portal class this past year, Luke?
I think he's under such a tremendous microscope that anything he does outside of that building is labeling him as not being a hard worker and not doing what he should be doing. So every time he plays golf, every time he's at Waffle House, every time he's driving from here to there, the perception is he's not working at it, and everybody's lapping us, and we're falling further and further behind. And the problem is he's brought a lot of that on himself, right? And so, to me, listen, are you recruiting well at the high school level right now? No, they haven't done a very good job right now at the high school level. Are you being able to close that gap with the transfer portal? Yeah, I think that they have. And I agree. I mean, bringing Eric Singleton over from Georgia Tech, huge pickup. I mean, that was a huge pickup. Obviously, the freshman receivers last year were high school kids. They did a great job there. So all of the focus is on this particular class. So while everybody wants to go after him for that, all that does is add more pressure for them to win on the field. And in my opinion, like Baylor's going to be a pretty good football team. That's a tough game. You're on the road. You cannot lose that game.
No.
And then you can't, in my opinion, if you're going to make the inroads and you're going to make the improvements, I don't think you can lose to Oklahoma or Texas A&M. And they play them back to back. Because then coming down the pike, you've got Alabama and Georgia remaining on the back half, with Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt wedged in between there. So I don't think there's much room for error. I agree. I think the quarterback position is going to be greatly improved. I think they're going to be pretty darn good on defense. Wideouts are really good, but they got to start beating people. And,
right.
And that's the bottom line. And then you start doing that, nobody's talking about whether you're playing golf or not.
That's right. They counted how many times he played golf from June.
Crushing him.
I mean, he's a scratch golfer. He's a great golfer. I remember all that when he was playing. He would play in alumni tournaments and stuff around here. We'd broadcast from him, and I think he's a phenomenal athlete growing up. He's a scratch golfer. But somebody counted. I don't remember what it was. It was like 18 times he played golf from June 1 to June 25th, and that's they were blaming that on why they had not recruit. They're nuts down there, but it's what drives them to win and not get crushed by the Bama shadow. Like there is some good, their commitment quotient and their craziness has kept them pretty damn good and relevant to withstand the tidal wave of Coach Paul Bear Bryant and Nick Saban.
No doubt. There's no question. But it's also what makes the job so tough because they're so hungry to, and that's why that era of Tommy Tuberville at Auburn. I mean, he owned Alabama.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they had a run there, and then they haven't had that since. And Gus Malzahn got him a couple of times, and guess what they did? They fire him. So it's like at some point or another, man, there's got to be some level of appreciation.
Oh, that's what I want to do next week. I want you to weigh in for 2, 3, 4 minutes on that's just wild that Gus left a head coaching job at Central Florida to be the offensive coordinator under an offensive driven coach or specialty under Norvell. That you just don't see that happen in the game that we like to cover. Hey, thanks for jumping on early this week. The Austin Simmons stuff was fantastic. I thought the article was fascinating. His dad's quotes and even his quotes and Kiffin's quotes were all interesting, and I can't wait to see what plays out here. Have a good week, my man. We'll talk next week, hopefully.
All right, brother. You too.
I may be coming to Charlotte. All right, see you. Tom Luginbill, National College Football Analyst with ESPN on the Out of Bounds Show. 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. He joined us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau insurance agent.